My first degree is actually in communication studies, my bachelor's degree. Then I have a master's degree in educational psychology, and I was a non-degree student to finish my teaching license here in the state of Wisconsin. I have two different licenses. One is for grades 6 to 12 English, and the other is grades 6 to 12 speech communication, so to be able to teach public speaking. I have taught for 12 years here at Burlington High School. My students taught, obviously, before that, both at middle school and high school. Right now, the classes that I teach, and it's pretty much been the case for like 5 years, is our public speaking, advanced placement English, and English literature.
Cool.
Otherwise, in my career, I have taught 9th grade and writing skills too. I guess probably the best example I can give of that would come from my AP and English lit curriculum. I try in those classes, which are very, very academic, very seriously academic, all college-bound students, to look for opportunities for creative writing that helps with our literary analysis. So one of the assignments that we do, for example, is when we read Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, my students have to write a modern one, right? They have to find a modern problem and propose an outrageous solution, just like Jonathan Swift looked at the problem of poverty in Ireland and wrote an outrageous solution. What's cool about that is, in order to do that updated one, that creative piece well, the students have to understand and really closely analyze how Swift structured his argument and what techniques he used to create his satire. So the creative piece is really the byproduct of very, very high-level academic work. Similarly, when we read Pride and Prejudice, advanced placement English, I will ask students to use Mr. Collins' voice to write a sonnet where he expresses his love. In order to do that well, they have to be able to understand the characters, read it real accurately. So a lot of ways, I think probably the greatest thing that I continue to work on doing, and how successful I am, I know always varies, but from the outset, when we talk about whatever our habits of mind, how are our discussions going to go? There are very few proven facts in literature. Yeah, students might make mistakes about who said what or how old a character is. But I think in trying to set up discussions to encourage multiple perspectives, multiple possible answers, to encourage supporting your argument rather than finding the right answer, I think really encourages creative thinking. You have to look at the text in a number of different ways. You have to summon your support. You have to come up with your own idea to defend. So I really try to encourage my students to consider multiple possibilities anytime they look at it. That's a good one. I would say I probably front load on instruction and move to more and more practice.
Okay.
For example, when I teach English literature, we start at the very beginning with Beowulf. And that takes a lot of context setting, a lot of explanation, simply because the culture is so foreign to those English. The language is so difficult to grasp. So there's a lot more support. Whereas by the end of English Lit, students are taking a lot more ownership of reading independently and drawing their own inferences. By the end of advanced placement, I have my students, our last novel that we're doing right now is Pride of the Beloved Country. And I'm going to teach the first set of chapters and lead the discussion. But from that point on, students are responsible for having a chapter, for presenting. And so they're practicing analysis without me having it first.
Okay.
I think that's really valuable. They've got to own it. By the time their second semester AP, I should be irrelevant. My goodness, that's a tough one. Well, you know me. You have to have a plan and be organized. And I don't just mean that in terms of labeling everything in the classroom, although I like that too. But I have to think in teaching a novel or in teaching a type of writing, what is that end result going to look like? What do I want my students to be able to do? And how are we going to practice that? How am I going to instruct? What are the examples and models and processes that are going to make sense? And sometimes your plans will be perfect and work really well, but I've also gotten a lot of really valuable feedback from my students about what we were not doing enough of, what was different, why was this one so hard. I've tried to establish a culture where students feel they can be honest with me. Sometimes it's just senioritis, we weren't paying attention, or whatever. But sometimes we need more practice with this, or I'm not able to study this on my own very effectively. And students have been invaluable in me becoming a better teacher, but just always having a purpose. Even in the last couple of years since we graduated, I've started telling kids more and more, you always have a right to ask me why we're doing something. And I always have to, I feel like I always have to have a reason for it.
Let's see. I graduated with my degree in education from UW-Madison. I got my master's degree from, oh my gosh, now I have to think, Aurora University, and a master's in teaching. And this year I teach 8th grade English and reading or language arts. Teaching philosophy probably would be, that fair is everybody has the same chance to succeed. And I always like to say, we all have something to contribute. It's not always the same thing. But if we're working in a group, everybody has a piece of the puzzle, and really that, everybody has an equal opportunity chance to succeed. That fair isn't the same, that everybody's doing the same thing at the same time, but that everybody can be successful at their level. It's tough. When I started teaching, it was like you could do, probably about the time I had you could do as much creative writing as you wanted to do, with some academic writing in there, and now it's almost the exact opposite, where, the academic writing is at the forefront with creative writing, in the midst of that. And so, unfortunately for myself, that's how it is. But, I still try, even though we're working academic writing, you're working on the same basic set of skills. But we change up, how we do that. And even though the formula kind of stays the same, whether it's, we had the kids do debates before they wrote their argumentation, or right now they're working in small groups to put together their literary analysis. So changing up how you get it the same product helps. The creative writing, that's the easy part. That's the stuff that kids want to do. And so trying to get them to see that academic writing can be creative, that your own voice in a piece of academic writing is key. It's not just the formula, it needs a part of you in it as well, that combination as well.
Do you still do your poetry unit?
I do.
Okay, I remember that still. That was awesome. Like, to this day, I still remember it.
Unfortunately, like I said, it has to be, the academic writing is just number one.
Right.
And so, it's probably not the same as what I would have done with you guys, but, I always say simple is best when you give kids, something simple and give them a lot of freedom. That's a great example of that. Take something pretty simple, provide you with the skills, and then let you have a lot of freedom. That's almost every kid's favorite.
Yeah.
My gosh, like I said, I usually say I give every daily assignment that we put in the notebook, I provide a guideline of what they need to do. So I give them the what to do, and they decide how to do it. I'll give you an example. When we're talking about thesis statements, and we talk about, the parts of a thesis statement and how to write them. And then part of their notebook assignment is to come up with a metaphor for the importance of a thesis statement in a piece of writing. So kids might draw, a road, with, I've seen it done so many ways. I've seen kids do like a video game, with, it says game over with words you can't use in a thesis statement. So I give them what to do, how you're going to interpret the importance of a thesis statement, and they decide how they want to do it, how are they going to put it together. And that is probably my favorite thing that I've done in the past couple of years.
Okay.
I think the more you can give them, like, time to, get their hands on something and actually do the work themselves, the better.
Mm-hmm.
So probably at the beginning of the year, it's a lot more hand-holding where we work through things together, and then I tell the kids, I'm taking a step back, and then, step back where now in their groups, they're helping each other get unstuck. But, both are important. Doing too much instruction where then they leave the room and they didn't get a chance to practice.
Right.
I mean, you're starting over at square one again the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So the more I'm a great proponent of, mini lesson, especially if it's something you've done before, and then let's practice it. And then, let's talk about it the next day. And, that practice is key. Going a whole class period talking about something and they don't have a chance to practice it till the next day, you're starting over at square one again. Gosh, don't be so hard on yourself. Not to compare yourself to someone who's been teaching a long time, because those first few years are tough and you're figuring everything out. And for sure, your first few years, even if it fails, you should try everything you want to try. Because if you get too afraid to try something and fail, then you get kind of stuck in that rut where you do the same thing every year. And I've tried a million things, some of which are successful and some are not, but otherwise I think you just get too afraid to try. So, not be too hard on yourself. Don't compare yourself to somebody who's been teaching for a while.